W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Well, it is indeed 9 o'clock, and it's time for Skynet. Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin at 9 p.m.? Skynet. I'll take that as a no. This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purposes are to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime, daytime, sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break very enthusiastically, followed by your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110 decimal niner. check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, charts, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. You can go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. You can also check into the net electronically by going to the club website, looking for tonight's announcement for Skynet, and click on the hot link to check in. It's right at the very top, just below the picture. Let's see. We will also acknowledge you on the air, so if you don't want to use the check-in, but don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we'll continue to do that as well. This just makes it easier and quicker to check in, is all. All amateur operators are welcome to check in, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club or group to participate. This net is 90 minutes long. We have it structured in a number of different parts. We may or may not get to all of them. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening that's selected by the NCS was space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches this week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and the 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So we will begin our check-ins with short time. That would be folks who have to leave the net early. If you'd like to join us and your short time, please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Short time only, please. All right, we will continue on. I will take general check-ins. If you're over there and you'd like to check in this evening, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Mike Tango Victor, Chad, and Garland.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas.
Ooh, it's going to be a slow one tonight. Let me go ahead and get those two checked in, and then I'll give you the electronic check-ins I already have. I've got N5MTV, that's Chad and Garland, W5QS Gus in far northeast Dallas. I also have on the electronic check-in list, of course, myself, NT5PM Tony in Bird City, KF5JJ Chaz, and Bob the Cat, of course, and Keith. N5BD Bill, who's in Buffalo, New York tonight, AG9SG Antonio in Dallas, and AA5AH Robert Jim Richardson. Additional check-ins, please come out.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, W5BLT Bill Garland on an HT. So hopefully I'm hitting the repeater. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
This is Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo Charlie 5, Charlie Alpha Kilo, Tom in Lakewood.
Alpha India 5, Oscar Lima, Dan, Southwest Fort Worth.
All right, we picked up a few more. There's pause in the action. I've got N5OS Clay and Mesquite on the electronic check-in. I've got W5BLT Bill in Garland, KC5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James North Carrollton, KF5ZBL Bill, Farmers Branch, KC5CAK in Lakewood. Could I get your name, please? Okay, we'll just call you unnamed. AI5OL, that's Dan in Southwest Fort Worth. Additional check-ins, please. Okay, well, that is fine. Let me see. Echolink, I think we've got them covered. Let's see here. We did short time. We've done Echolink, sort of. Anyone electronically on Echolink I may not have hit, or on All-Star Link, please come now. Okay, hearing on, we'll go ahead and get to general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come with your call sign now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tom, that might have been you. If that was for me, try again.
Hit us with your best shot.
Okay, well, I just got this written moments before you called on me, so I'm glad I got it done in time. Now, I don't believe this either, except I can see it on my radio in an WSJTX. There is a ton of activity right now on 6 meters. Yes, the sun is down. I can see the very faintest dusky twilight, but 6 meters is full of people. Yes, at 9:10 CDT. So please don't forget to participate in the ARRL June VHF contest. It's going on right now through tomorrow. This might be your only chance to make a 6 meter or 2 meter weak signal contact until next year. Man, there's just so many people there. I would like to go back to doing that, but no, instead I'm going to remind you that the Summer Field Day is just around the corner, the last field weekend in June. The DARC Field Day operation at the Johnston Outpost YMCA will be a full 24-hour operation. You can help set up on Saturday morning. There are a lot more details at w5fc.org. There is also a special prize for people who help participate in the takedown. We've had great takedowns for the past few years. That's what we offer, a bribe. So please come on out, even if all you can do is come on out Sunday morning. Believe it or not, all the regular operators are really tired. So operating Sunday morning is still a very valuable contribution. W5fc.org, as I mentioned, has more details. Now, if you'd like something short but without air conditioning or indoor bathrooms, unlike the DARC, The White Rock Lake Amateur Radio Club will be operating at Flagpole Hill Saturday only. Saturday only, though. There are more details at wa5wrl.org. We'll be having an in-person meeting this week, Wednesday, January 17th, at a location to be determined to hash out the details. Keep your eye on wa5wrl.org. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on Labyrinth from 1986. Muppets, monsters, very tight trousers, big hair, interesting songs. Yep, all here tonight at 10:30 or 10:35, except we can't play the songs over the air. All we can do is talk about them. Join us for Labyrinth tonight. Now, if you've lived through the VHF contest and you enjoyed our discussion of Labyrinth, you're probably hungry. Well, we can help you. This Monday, we'll feature a ham fixins net at 7 p.m. on this repeater. Your recipes, cooking tips, and kitchen stories are all welcome. And yes, I am overdue. I'll try to share this on Discord, but please don't forget there are a lot of opportunities to volunteer for FIFA World Cup support. Well, maybe not for Tom unless he goes to Houston, but for all of you here in the Dallas area, please email me at nt5tm@w5fc.org. November Tango 5, Tango Mike at w5fc.org, and I will send you an email rich in details about how you can help. Thank you for listening. I know it's late. NT5TM.
Well, thank you, Tony, and thanks for all those announcements. And, yep, I'm coming up for Field Day, for DARC Field Day, and golly, how did the White Rock Lake group get Flagpole Hill? I bet you they're wearing glasses and that nose and the little mustache thing. Those are pretty cool. Unfortunately, the name tags are going to give it away. Well, we'll see how that all goes. I hope they have a great field day. Hope we have a great field day. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again, even though I get to see you only about once a year. And this is it. I'm looking forward to it. Does anybody have any additional announcements or have any questions? Please come with your call now. Okay, let me run through some of the announcements. Tony's already covered most of them, but let me do a couple of scattered ones. The AMSAT net on Tuesday evenings is at 8 o'clock, the National AMSAT net. You can learn all about amateur satellites, and you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered, as this is a local net in Houston. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, which is amsatnet.com. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both of these encourage active check-ins where you can ask questions of the net control and others who are checked in. AMSAT Net East is every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on this repeater. On Tuesday, well, it says Tuesdays. Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, so there is no AMSAT Net East. However, there is an AMSAT Net West. What a surprise, right? That's every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, also with a TL tone of 110.9 with a positive offset. We talked about Monday nets, and coming up, we have the Saturday Night of Nets, which is currently going on. If you missed TechNet, that's from 7 to 8 o'clock, all things ham radio related. Skynet, which is what you're listening to now, and then at 10, from 9 till 10:30, and then the Afterglow movie net from 10:30 until midnight. I'll give you a little synopsis of that movie in just a minute. Daily Nets, the ARRL National Traffic System training net is every night at 6:30 on this repeater. Learn how message traffic is handled in this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in, as this is a training net. NTS also conducts an evening net, Irving, on the Irving repeater, W5FC. That frequency is 146.72 megahertz at 9:30. Now, Tony mentioned the Afterglow info, or Afterglow movie this evening. I have the info on it. Listen carefully, as this is highly accurate information. You may even want to take notes. Jim Henson was no stranger to movies or television. He built a solid reputation. Unfortunately, that reputation included puppets, the bane of most actors, producers, and directors. Who the hell wants to act with a rag-brained, filled Muppet puppet sock thing and ruin their careers in the process? The answer was not many, and the list was short, and making the calls wouldn't take long. Art Carney was one, but he was in detox. Julie Andrews, another, but she had an allergy to painted socks, so she was out. Edgar Berglund was a natural, but his agent, another puppet, by the way, Charlie McCarthy, wanted too much money. Henson thought, there's something seriously wrong with that man. Finally, it came down to David Bowie, whose daily diet of milk and cocaine kept him firmly entrenched in the world where sock puppets were real. Anyways, Henson knew he had his leading actor. In fact, all the puppets got top billing simply because Bowie appreciates them more than real actors. So join us for whatever this movie is, Labyrinth from 1986, tonight at 10:30 p.m. I am sure the discussion will be lively. And puppetry. What would you call it? Puppalicious. Oh, well, whatever. If you want to see the movie or watch it in the background, there's also little musical numbers in it as well. You can go to the club website and find Skynet, and then you'll find the movie and a hot link there if you just want to run it in the background. You can at least watch the puppets sing and dance. Don't forget, we also have something special. Sci-fi comedy with other hands, where you get to throw things at the screen. Well, we don't have a screen, we got a wall that we watch it on. It'll be a lot of fun. That will be Back to the Future. Everyone is welcome. Come on by. This is at the YMCA Johnson Outpost at 3325 Valley View Lane in Farmers Branch at 10:30. All are welcome. And remember, where we're going, we don't need roads. Well, maybe Valley View Lane, but that's it. And this is KE5 ICX Net Control, and this is Skynet. You can keep up with all DAR's events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. You see if there's anyone new. No one on the electronic check-in. Anyone else want to check in or have any questions? Come with your call now.
This is KJ5QEI, Patrick, checking in.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
Excellent. We picked up two more. We've got KJ5QEI, Patrick. That's a new one on me. Patrick, where are you located?
This is Patrick again. I am located in Carrollton at Hebron and Josie.
Thank you, Patrick. And, you know, there's a kind of a reason why we ask for your location, because we're always interested to see how the repeater and your signal is getting out. If we have an idea where you're at, we can spot spots where it might be questionable, or if we know that you should have a really good signal and it's not so good, we can tell you, or vice versa. And you have a good signal, Patrick, so thanks for checking in. K5JDW, John over in Coppell. We know that guy, so welcome, John. All right, moving on is the next section with Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope. That one is usually handled by Chaz. He is checked in, so KF5JHA, what do you have for us this evening for Texas Astronomical Society from KE5 ICX?
Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. I usually get tongue-tied when I'm the net controller as well, Tom, so welcome to the club. On June the 26th, 2026 is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting. The meeting is going to be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. There's also a Zoom component for members. The featured speaker is going to be Senhel Nagapan, and his topic is going to be sharing astronomy through public observing sessions and educational programs. Now, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas also hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the second Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Frisco. Do we have a ham radio operator at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Please come now with your call sign. Well, last time I checked, we had partly cloudy skies, so we could have seen Jupiter and Venus. And did all of you see that? Venus and Jupiter really close to each other on Monday night? I don't know. We'll talk about that more later. All right, you can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA. Back to our net control. Would that be Father Skynet?
I don't know anymore. It could be grandfather Skynet. We should do something. I didn't realize the 15th anniversary had caught up with us, but Skynet's been on the air at this time for the last 15 years. All right, next up is the National Space Society Events and Activities. That's handled by Bill, N5BB. He is out of town. He's transmitting or using the internet and his tablet, so he's going to want to know if we get a signal from him. I'm sure we will, but we'll give it a shot here. So, Bill, N5BB, go ahead with your announcements from KE5. Thank you.
Hello, Tom and Annette. This is N5BB. Is my audio getting through, Tom?
Bill, it's good enough. You're not quite as loud as everyone else, but you are very readable, so go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. There's no transmit audio gain control on this iPad with the Echolink app. So this is N5BB. I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local NSS chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving. Our next chapter meeting will be tomorrow on Sunday, June the 14th. The topic will be the Orion capsule and the launch abort system, by Ernest Levert, who is a retired Lockheed Fellow. You can also listen to our meetings remotely via WebEx. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 7 people attended the May event. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday, June the 26th. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. ISDC 2026 occurred last week in Virginia near Washington, D.C., and I attended. I will report more details about this conference in 3 weeks during the Skynet session on Saturday, July 4th. Tonight, I am in Buffalo, New York at the CSI Con, that's CSICON 2026 convention. This is the 50th anniversary of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, a group interested in science. An hour ago, I heard an interview at the convention with Bill Nye, who is the science guy, who received the CSI Isaac Asimov Award. Bill Nye spoke about his stint as CEO of the Planetary Society, from which he recently retired. He also spoke about his work with Carl Sagan, who is a popular astronomer involved with the National Space Institute, which was later renamed National Space Society. By the way, Bill Nye's mother was a codebreaker during World War II, and his dad was captured by Japanese forces on Wake Island in December 1941 and was held in a prisoner of war camp. Bill Nye encourages everyone to support science, which is currently under siege with NASA and other government science programs being drastically cut, and some science programs totally eliminated. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, N5BB, that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, at his QRZ-listed email address, or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. That's all I've got, Tom, N5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill, and enjoy your time in Buffalo, New York, and the conference. It sounds really good. Bill and I talked a little bit today. He was having a great time with all the speakers, so I'm sure we'll hear probably a combination of both of these when he's up for net control here in a few weeks. So, this is KE5ICX, and this is Skynet. Since the NCS, and I'm the NCS this evening, one of the things we get to do, or we're tasked with doing, is a discussion topic of the evening. Usually it's a presentation, but there is a question and answer afterwards. Last month, I talked about the launch of the Skylab Saturn V orbital workshop. Well, I thought maybe we would go in and talk about the rescue this evening. So I've got a little prepared presentation with the help of NASA History Archives. I have the hot link on the website in case you want to read the article yourself. I had added concerning a few personal comments, but here we go. Last month, I discussed the last Saturn V launch of the Skylab Orbital Workshop. I mentioned I saw it in person, the last launch of the Saturn V rocket and its impact. But I also mentioned the disappointment when Skylab 2 wouldn't fly the next day. That was with the crew. The fact that we never saw the dramatic event unfold in real time, only finding out the resulting station damage and how the entire Skylab program was now in danger. This month, I want to talk about the rescue mission. I'm using an article from NASA Online Archives, which does a very good job describing what happened, what actions were taken, and how the Skylab 2 crew saved the station, proclaiming, "We fix anything." So So on to the article. Skylab, America's first space station and first crewed research laboratory in space, lifted off on May 14, 1973. It enabled research in several areas, including the astronauts' physiological responses to long-duration spaceflight, Earth sciences, and solar physics and astronomy, with additional experiments in minerals processing. During launch, Skylab lost its micrometeoroid shield that also provided thermal protection. Debris from the shield jammed one of the power-generating solar array wings, and it lost the other wing completely. Managers delayed the launch of Skylab 2 crew of Commander Charles P. Conrad, pilot Paul Weitz, and science pilot Joe Kerwin as engineers devised plans to save the overheating and underpowered space station. The trio launched on May 25th, inspected the station, and finally docked. The next day, they erected a sunshade over the station to lower its temperature. During this launch on May 14th, the Skylab 1 space station suffered significant damage that tore off its micrometeoroid shield that also acted as a thermal shield, jammed one of its power-generating solar array wings, and tore the other wing off completely. After reaching orbit as planned, the space station jettisoned its payload shroud and deployed the Apollo Telescope Mount, or ATM, with its 4 smaller solar arrays. The controllers at Mission Control in Houston, led by Flight Director Donald Putty, grew concerned as temperatures inside the unprotected station rose to alarmingly high temperatures. The high temperatures would not only make it impossible for the astronauts to live and work aboard the station, but could possibly ruin sensitive film and food supplies and even potentially cause insulating materials to give off toxic gases. Mission managers postponed the crew's launch, planned for the following day, by at least 5 days so engineers could better assess the situation and devise plans to first cool the station and then free the jammed solar array wing. As that work took longer than first anticipated, they delayed the launch another 5 days to May 25th. Engineers and mission controls devised an attitude plan for Skylab that maximized power generation from the ATM solar arrays, yet minimized direct solar exposure to keep internal temperatures as low as was feasible. Teams of engineers at JSC, or Johnson Space Center, and NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, MSFC, in Huntsville, Alabama, came up with 3 possible solutions to cool the station. One option called for a twin-pole sunshade that required 2 astronauts to conduct a spacewalk to attach to the station's exterior. Managers believed this would provide the best shading for the station, but also deemed it too complex given the training time available, and decided to launch it, but let Skylab's second crew deploy it. The second option involved attaching a sunshade by one of the astronauts standing in the open hatch of the Apollo command module as another flew the spacecraft down the length of the station. While managers considered this option the most challenging, they decided to fly the hardware anyway. The third, and one managers ultimately chose for the Skylab 2 crew, involved deploying a parasol-like sunshade from inside Skylab using one of its scientific airlocks. While they didn't consider this a permanent solution, it seemed the least complex and would yield nearly immediate results. Jack Kinsler, Chief of Technical Science Services Division at JSC and designed the Apollo 11 U.S. flag, designed a parasol by attaching a 22 by 24 foot fabric sheet made of nylon, mylar, and aluminum to the ends of 4 fishing rods, real fishing rods, folks. The folded assembly pushed through the airlock using segments of metal poles. Once the spring-loaded fishing rods extended, the astronauts would retract the flat parasol so it fits snugly against Skylab's exterior. As a downside to this solution, experiments that relied on the scientific airlock no longer had that facility available. The parasol, packed by professional parachute riggers, fit inside an 8-inch square container 53 inches long, small enough to fit inside the command module. With the 3 parasols and extra tools packed below their seats, Conrad, Weitz, and Kerwin climbed aboard their Apollo spacecraft. The Saturn 1B rocket lifted off from pad 39B at 9 a.m. on May 25th, 1973. As soon as the rocket cleared the launch tower, Mission Control at JSC took over monitoring the flight, led by Flight Director Philip Schaefer, with astronauts Richard Truly serving as the capsule communicator. Soon after separating from the rocket's S-4B second stage, the astronauts began the 7-hour chase to catch up with Skylab. Tally ho, the Skylab, Conrad radioed from 1.5 miles away. As they approached even closer, they could see that, as expected, Skylab's skin was a gold mylar, not the black and white of the now missing micrometeoroid shield. That one solar array was completely off the bird, and the second array only opened about 15 degrees instead of the expected 90, held down by debris from the lost shield. On closer inspection, the gold material had turned black and even bubbled from the 11 days of exposure in the sun's scorching rays. The fly-around inspection completed, Conrad steered the CSM to the station's forward docking port as planned, brought the spacecraft in for a soft docking, meaning the Apollo's docking probe engaged in the drogue on the station side, but the latches did not engage. In this configuration, they ate dinner, discussed the next steps, and undocked 49 minutes later. Conrad flew the spacecraft back to the aft section of the station near the end of the partially deployed solar array wing. They depressurized the spacecraft, opened the hatch, and with Conrad flying to keep the spacecraft in position, White stood up in the hatch with Kerwin holding his legs to keep him from floating away. When Conrad, flying the spacecraft sometimes as close as 2 feet from the solar wing, White used a shepherd's hook tool at the end of a 10-foot pole to try to pull the array free. He exerted enough force that the wing moved about 1 foot, but it stubbornly refused to open, pinned by a half-inch strap of metal. The effort also caused the Apollo command and service modules to pull closer to Skylab and even pulled the station closer, causing its thrusters to fire. Fearing a collision, Conrad fired thrusters to pull away, with the hook still attached to the wing, nearly pulling White out of the spacecraft. They next attempted to cut the metal strap keeping the solar wing pinned, switching the hook to a double-pronged hook, but White couldn't get a good angle on it, and it proved too thick to cut. With orbital darkness approaching, Conrad decided to call off the attempt. They closed the hatch, repressurized the spacecraft, and headed back to the forward docking port. Their first attempt to dock did not succeed. Neither did the second, nor the third, or even the fourth. Conrad attempted to dock at slower speed, faster speed, with no success. They once again depressurized the spacecraft so they could open the forward hatch to bypass some electrical connections, until finally, on the 8th attempt, after using an emergency backup procedure, they achieved first a soft docking and then a hard docking. The astronauts cleaned up the spacecraft and went to sleep. After a very eventful 22-hour day, the next morning they sampled the air in the multiple docking adapter, a MDA, using a toluene dicyclocyanate, or TDI, detector developed specifically for this mission. Levels of TDI would indicate that the speed aboard the station caused some of the insulation to break down. He opened the hatch and, wearing gas masks, entered the MDA to activate it in the airlock module and ATM. Because these two modules were still closed off to the main workshop, the temperatures remained in the 50s. With Conrad beginning the process of deactivating the CSM, White and Kerwin began activating the MDA and ATM, respectively. Wearing a mask, White entered the workshop first, spending 5 minutes inside to activate the module stand. Kerwin later used TDI detector to confirm the absence of toxic gas in the workshop. The temperatures hovered around an estimated 125 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit, but with low humidity. White later described it as feeling like a desert heat. Other than starting the activation of the station, one of the high priority tasks of this day included the deployment of the parasol to begin cooling the station. They brought the assembly from the command module and installed the canisters onto the scientific airlock on the sun-facing side of the workshop. Although they worked in the relative comfort of the pressurized workshop, the heat forced them to periodically retreat to the CM to cool off and rehydrate. Conrad assembled the components of the parasol and began pushing the rods through the airlock. With Kerwin watching from the CM, the parasol extended to its full length and its folded arms swung out, stretching out the fabric. Conrad retracted the pole so that the parasol lay flush against the workshop skin, although it did not fully deploy due to crinkling of the fabric. Temperatures in the workshop began to decrease. The astronauts kept all the station's latches and hatches and spent another night sleeping in the CM. This is KE5ICX. Over the next several days, the temperatures in the workshop continued to drop to more comfortable ranges. The astronauts tried to return to their pre-flight timelines. High-priority activities included setting up the wardroom and workshop water supply system so they could eat meals on the station instead of the less efficient CM, activating the film vault, checking status of food supplies, activating waste management systems. For the next 3 nights, the workshop was still too hot. They slept in a much cooler MDA. At the start of their 4th day on May 28th, the astronauts ate their first breakfast in the wardroom. That day, with temperatures still warm but dropping every hour, they began their mission science experiments. White's observing the track changes in his cardiovascular system. White curtailed his ride on a bicycle ergometer due to the heat. Kerwin also collected the first blood sample of Conrad. They held a televised press conference from the wardroom, and Mission Control completed a ground command checkout of the ATM with the first crew-tended operations on the 5th day. After spending their first night in sleep stations in the workshop on the 6th day, they completed the first session of this tubular experiment in the rotating chair and took first photos of the Earth Resources experiment package. With the expansion of the science program and reduced available power levels, resulted in Mission Control needing to delay some activities. Getting the stuck solar array deployed took on greater importance to finish not only the research of the first mission, but the next 2 longer flights as well. Meanwhile, backup Skylab 2 Commander Rusty Schweikert led a Tiger team to develop various procedures for freeing the jammed solar array. Using the televised images, crew descriptions, and other available information about the nature of the debris, most likely a half-inch wide strap with a bolt embedded into the wing itself. The first proposed attempt, Weiss's stand-up spacewalk, proved ineffective. More complicated procedures involved Conrad and Kerwin conducting a spacewalk from the Skylab airlock and using a cutting tube on the end of a long pole to cut the strap. Schweikert and other astronauts practiced these techniques in MSFC's neutral buoyancy simulator. Aboard Skylab, in the days leading up to the spacewalk on June 2nd, Conrad celebrated his 43rd victory, birthday, and the first American to mark an anniversary in space. Soviet cosmonaut Viktor Katsiev did his first aboard Soyuz in June of 1971. The article abruptly ends there, unfortunately. I just noticed that. I did check it, but indeed they did. He was able to actually stand on the vehicle and using, it's weightless, but grabbing the wing, he lifted with 2 hands and pulled the wing out after cutting as they simultaneously cut the bolt or cut the strap, and it opened up. He tumbled end over end, but he regained footing as much as could be in 0G, and they returned to the station. So there you have it. Very dramatic. I forgot about the first EVA where they tried to do this with the command module floating around, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't know why they never did a actual movie about this, maybe a dramatic one. They did one with one of the Soyuz, one of the Soviet LMAS stations that had problems. There was a whole movie that was done. This one might have been interesting. Who knows? All right, does anyone have any questions? I'll try and answer them if you do. If you do, please come with your call.
How about a comment? Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey.
K5KDW, go ahead, John.
Well, a quick comment about the hams. I guess all the veteran hams know this, and the new ones are going to find this out. This hobby sometimes gives you things out of left field you never see coming, which is another really cool thing about the hobby. Back when Skylab was up, I actually had a contact with them, and one of the cosmonauts there used all those contacts and actually contacted people in the United States to ask them if they wanted to be a member or a part of the Shadow project, which was he was working on this ion plume, and he put radio waves through it, and it cast the RF shadow on the ground, and they let stations be the receivers for those to kind of get a picture so they could size that plume and get a kind of an image of what that plume looked like in space. So that's one of those pretty cool things. Like I said, all the hams know that there's always going to be something come out of the woodwork for this hobby that you don't foresee. That's really cool. Anyway, K5JDW.
Yeah, thank you, John. That's always a good point, and we've still got the insider track on that, although the average Earth-bound space enthusiast can get involved now without amateur radio. We still get the upper hand in case there's a sort of RF component. Also, there are two ham radio stations on board the International Space Station right now. Most astronauts and most cosmonauts are amateur radio operators. They get their license either they've always had a license because they have a genuine curiosity, they're that type of individual, or they get it just before they fly so that they have a recreational activity and access to the public from space, since those two stations exist. One's over in one of the Russian modules, and then there's one in one of the modules that the U.S. put up. All right, with that, we're going to continue on. We have a packed thing tonight. So next up is Chaz, KF5JHA, and his segment is What's Up. So Chaz, what's up?
Thank you, Tom. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. Slide Master, slide number 2. The Slide Master is our net control tonight. Yep, Tom is the Slide Master every week, though. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and maybe beyond. I talked about the close gathering. It was a conjunction back on Monday of Venus and Jupiter. I just was looking outside a few moments ago. Venus is higher in the sky, Jupiter's down lower, but those are the two bright objects over there in the west right now tonight. Slide Master, slide number 3. I've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness around 10th magnitude, I just checked a few minutes ago, which is much too faint to be seen with just your two eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova about 2 years ago. One recent prediction was for T Corona Borealis to go nova on November the 10th, 2025. Well, that didn't happen. So another prediction is June the 25th. We're talking about just less than 2 weeks. June 25th of this year, plus or minus maybe a couple of days. When it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is second magnitude. I can see the North Star with just my two eyes from my very light polluted location here in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. This image of the sun was taken on June the 9th. I think that was Tuesday from the website spaceweather.com. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that all you need to use are your solar eclipse glasses to see them. Now, the sun has just passed its 11-year solar maximum. That was in October of 2024. I presented information about the solar cycle about 6 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. On June the 8th was the third quarter moon, so the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. In fact, tomorrow, June the 14th, is new moon. Also on June the 14th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 357,197 kilometers. On June the 21st, the moon will be at its first quarter phase. On June the 28th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,265 kilometers. On June the 29th, the moon is full. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. So in just a few days, on June the 16th, there's a conjunction of the moon, Jupiter, and Pollux, and the western evening sky, actually the northwestern evening sky. Now Venus will be still close by too. Slide Master, slide number 7. On the night of June the 11th and 12th, there's the peak of the June Lyrid meteor shower, which could produce either from nothing up to maybe 30 meteors per hour. Usually the best time to observe meteors is the hour before dawn, because that's the side of the Earth that's running into the debris that's left behind by comets or asteroids. If you want to get more information about meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 8. This is a special event. On June the 17th, this is a daytime event. There's going to be a daytime occultation of Venus by the moon. That's when the moon comes between us and Venus and blocks our view of Venus. Venus will disappear behind the moon at 2:18 in a few seconds Central Daylight Time. That's in the afternoon. The reappearance will be about 3:34 Central Daylight Time. So again, since this is a daytime event, if you use a telescope or binoculars, please do not point them at the sun. You can damage your eyes and your equipment. I'm more concerned about your eyes. But be careful. Venus is not that close to the sun in the sky, so you shouldn't have any problems. Slide Master, slide number 9. On June the 17th, there's a conjunction of the moon, the planet Venus, and M44 in the western evening sky. That's just later in the day on the 17th. That's after dark. Slide Master, slide number 10. On June the 19th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the star Regulus in the western evening sky. Regulus is in the constellation of Leo the Lion. Slide Master, slide number 11. On June the 19th, there's the conjunction of Venus and M44, which is called the Beehive star cluster in the western evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 12. On June the 21st, in the northern hemisphere, it's the summer equinox at 3:34 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Yep, that's the summer equinox. In the southern hemisphere, that would be the winter equinox at the same time. This is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 13. Now, do any of you out there on Radio Land have a question or need a fill on any of the information that I've just given you? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. My degree is in astrophysics, so I might have an answer. Or maybe someone else here on the net might have an answer. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. I guess you missed your opportunity to stump the astronomer. Slide Master, slide number 14. So as the moon wanes, for at least today, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. Until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ Chaz, and this is Skynet, which is transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, at 146.88 megahertz. Skynet is also available on Echolink and YouTube. Back to our net control.
Chaz, and we'll be looking forward to your next segment here in a moment. I have now checked in Dustin, AV5DM, over in Dallas. He's watching on YouTube. Welcome, Dustin. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Hello, this is Whiskey November 5, Romeo November Whiskey, transmitting mobile out of DFW Airport.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Okay, very good. We picked up two more. Another new call, WN5RNW. He's mobile. If you don't mind, could I ask your name, please?
Roger that. This is Pat. That's Papa Alpha Tango.
Very good. Thank you, Pat. And this is the night of net, so we're on all evening long until midnight. We have another net after this called the Afterglow Movie Net. We talk about films. Before that was TechNet, and before that was the Traffic Net. So we got net score on Saturday night. Okay, one of our regulars, WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas. He's low power, as always, with an excellent signal. We got you checked in, Ted. All right, next up is space exploration and space history. That's handled by Gus, W5GUS. Gus, what do you have for us this evening from KE5, ICX?
Okay, thank you, Tom. W5GUS here with Space Exploration News. We'll start off with the ISS leak rate up there. Precautionary safety measures aboard the ISS were relaxed on June 8th, and the Russian section managed a sudden increase in air leak when they noticed the sudden air leak rate increase within the Russian section. During the weekend, NASA instructed the SpaceX Crew 12 members to take shelter inside their docked Crew Dragon spacecraft as a standard safety precaution. The Russian engineers successfully completed checks on the hatch seal and isolated the section to prevent further pressure drops. And normal science operations and crew movements resumed safely on Monday, with engineers continuing to monitor pressure trends. Okay, June 9th, NASA officially announced the 4-person prime crew for the highly anticipated Artemis 3 mission during a press briefing at the Johnson Space Center. The selected crew consists of Commander Randy Bresnik, pilot Luca Parmitano of the European Space Agency, and mission specialist Frank Rubio and Andre Douglas. And astronaut Bob Hines was named as the backup crew member. And moving away from earlier lunar surface landing plans for Artemis 3, NASA updated the mission profile to serve as an Earth orbital flight test to demonstrate critical rendezvous and docking operations with commercial landing systems from SpaceX and Blue Origin. The crewed flight is scheduled for late 2027. Okay, and let's see, Blue Origin Chief Executive David Limp outlined the company's recovery timeline following that massive static fire anomaly that resulted in a launch stand explosion at Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral. While the blast destroyed an engine test article and damaged ground support piping, the CEO confirmed that critical infrastructure, including the launch tower, pad, deck, and main propellant storage tanks, escaped major structural damage. The company is actively fabricating replacement components and plans to resume hot fire testing by late this. And despite the setback, Blue Origin remains committed to attempting the maiden orbital flight of the New Glenn heavy lift rocket before the end of this year. Okay, June 12th, NASA X-59 experimental aircraft successfully reached its design speed of Mach 1.4 at an altitude of 55,000 feet. This first mission conditions flight represents a critical step in the quiet supersonic technology which it uses, which aims to collect data that could enable commercial supersonic flight over land by reducing the loud sonic boom to a quiet sonic thump. So we'll hope to see what that develops. All right, and that's the last item in recent development. So let's go to space-related birthdays. Let's see, June 7th, 1979, Anne McClain was born. She launched to the International Space Station in 2018, conducting a series of scientific experiments and logging more than 203 days in orbit. During her mission, she performed 2 spacewalks, totaling over 13 hours to perform upgrades to the station's power system. Okay, June 8th, 1937, Bruce McCandless II was born. He served as a mission specialist on STS-41 shuttle mission, during which he performed the historic first untethered spacewalk using the manual maneuvering unit. He later flew on the STS-31 mission, which successfully deployed the Hubble Space Telescope into Earth orbit. Okay, June 10th, 1929, James McDivitt was born. He was on Apollo 4 and Apollo 9, commanded the Gemini 4 mission, which featured the historic first American spacewalk conducted by Edward Higgins White. He later commanded Apollo 9, the critical first man's flight test of the complete Apollo spacecraft and lunar module. June 12, 1959, Frank Calderio was born. He was a ham, KE4RFI. He was selected as NASA's astronaut. Let's see, just hit a, let's see, stand by. All right, sorry about that. I hit a button and it launched me down into the oh, I just did it again. Stand by. All right, it's my fat fingers on a tiny, small laptop here. We were at Frank Calderio, June 12, 1958. He was a ham KE-4 RFI, selected as a NASA astronaut candidate in '96 and served as various technical support roles at the Kennedy Space Center and Johnson Space Center. Although he did not fly in space, he supported the shuttle software checks and space station operations before his passing in 2009. Okay, now we're into this week in space history. June the 7th, 1971, the Soviet Soyuz 11 spacecraft successfully docked with Salyut 1, marking the historic first boarding of space station. The crew, consisting of 3 astronauts, or cosmonauts, spent over 3 highly productive weeks conducting observations and experiments. Tragically, their mission ended in disaster during their return to Earth on June the 30th, 1971. A ventilation valve was jolted open during the separation of the orbital module on the return, causing the descent cabin to depressurize and asphyxiate all 3 cosmonauts. The disaster led to a major redesign of the Soyuz spacecraft, mandating that cosmonauts wear pressurized spacesuits during both launch and re-entry. Very similar to our Apollo 1 tragedy that happened January 27, 67, about 4.5 years before, when a spark in a switch ignited the pure oxygen atmosphere of the command module during a launch rehearsal, which killed all 3 U.S. astronauts aboard. And it led to a lot of redesign for the Apollo capsule also. Okay, June 8th, a little while earlier, 1625, almost 400 years ago, Italian-French astronomer, engineer, Giovanni Cassini was born in Genoa, Italy. Cassini went on to serve as the first director of the Paris Observatory, where he made groundbreaking discoveries about the solar system. He discovered 4 of Saturn's moons and identified the gap in the planet's rings, now known as the Cassini division. And in recognition of his massive contributions to planetary science, he was named, the spacecraft was named, let's see, the Cassini spacecraft was named after him, yeah. The spacecraft spent 13 years exploring the Saturnian system, carrying out close flybys and dropping a probe on Titan. Okay, June 10th, 2003, NASA's Spirit rover was successfully launched aboard a Delta H rocket from Cape Canaveral on a mission to search for clues of past water on Mars. Spirit landed safely in January of 2004, beginning a highly successful geological survey of the Martian surface. Although designed for a 90-day primary mission, the robust rover survived for 6 years and traveled over 7 kilometers. Spirit discovered carbonate materials and silica deposits, providing strong evidence that Mars once had a warm, wet environment suitable for microbial life. The rover finally ceased communications on March 10th, 2010, after becoming stuck in sand and failing to survive the cold Martian winter. Okay, and on June 11th, 2011, NASA astronaut Ronald Garan captured groundbreaking high-definition video of a sunrise from his vantage point aboard the International Space Station. Orbiting 400 kilometers above the planet, the station experiences 16 sunrises and sunsets every day as it travels at 28,000 kilometers per hour. The footage released by NASA provided the public with unprecedented high-resolution view of the thin, glowing band of Earth's atmosphere, like an onion skin. This recording became a prominent tool for public outreach, highlighting both the beauty of our planet and the fragility of our atmosphere. The video was widely used to inspire interest in orbital science and Earth observation programs. Okay, and June 12th, 1998, Space Shuttle Discovery touched down at Kennedy Space Center, completing the historic 9-day STS-91 mission. This flight marked the final docking of a U.S. space shuttle with the Russian space station Mir, concluding the historic shuttle Mir program. The joint program served as a vital stepping stone for both space agencies, allowing them to gain experience in international orbit operations. The mission successfully transferred scientific equipment, water, and cargo, and returned NASA astronaut Andy Thomas to Earth after a 141-day stay on Mir. The lessons learned during these cooperative flights paved the way for construction and operation of the International Space Station. Okay, and the last item for this week is on June 13th, 1983, Pioneer 10 space probe became the first human-made object to travel beyond the central solar system. It was launched in March. The spacecraft traversed the asteroid belt and conducted the historic first flyby of Jupiter, sending back stunning close-ups images as it crossed the orbit of Neptune, which was the outermost planet at the time due to Pluto's eccentric orbit. Pioneer 10 entered interstellar space. The spacecraft carried the famous Pioneer plaque, depicting figures of a human male and female alongside symbols designed to share the origin of the spacecraft. Pioneer 10 continued transmitting data until its signal became too weak to detect in January 2003. So it's about 20 years. Okay, that's it for this segment, so we will return it back to our net control, Tom, and anticipate Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week and Chaz. Back to you, Tom, W5GUS.
Thank you guys for that report. This is KE5ICX, net control for Skynet. Next up is Chaz with the Constellation of the Week. KSI-JJ from KE5ICX.
Thank you again. Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is slide number 15. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent T. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012. Yep, we're in our 16th year. We've already passed our anniversary of 15 years. We're in our 16th year of Skynet. So she was involved with Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is Libra, the scales. Now, Libra is a zodiacal constellation. That means it's one of the 13 members of the zodiac that the sun, the moon, and the planets seem to go through. It depicts an inanimate object. It's the only constellation of the zodiac that does so. The ancient Greeks did not recognize Libra, but instead its stars represented the claws of the adjacent Scorpius. Other cultures, including the ancient Romans, Egyptians, Hebrews, and Indians, recognized Libra as a balance. The concept of a balance or a scale in the sky originates from the equal lengths of day and night at the equinox. 2,000 years ago, September equinox was what was now in Libra. Also, the stars of that part of the sky came to be associated with the balance of scales. Due to the precession of the equinox, when the sun is in September equinox, today it's in Virgo and not in Libra. Slide Master, slide number 16, the jokes of the week. Okay, the jokes are associated with the constellation of the week. And if you're over on Echolink, you can sit there and do comments. If you're over on YouTube, you can make comments in the chat session. If you're on radio, you just have to suffer through these. Okay. How did the psychic achieve a work-life balance? By finding a happy medium. Come on, that was funny. Why is our net control, that would be Tom tonight, keep trying to balance mints on their foot? Yep, mints on his foot. Turns out he was trying to play tic-tac-toe. Why did the tiger eat the tightrope walker? He wanted to have a well-balanced diet. What do teenagers call a well-balanced meal? A packet of ramen noodles in each hand. You know, that way it's balanced. I have 6 goldfish. Yep, 6 goldfish. I have 6 of them, named Major, Minor, Flat 9, Bebop, Altered, and Blues. The only way to tell them apart is by their scales. A wife saw her husband tucking in his stomach while standing on the scale and said, "That won't help." And he said, "What did he say?" Yes, it does. I can read the numbers now. All right, slide master, slide number 17. Oh, I love to say this word. Juvenile Ganubi is also known as Alpha Libra, is the brightest star in the constellation of Libra at magnitude 2.00. It lies close to the ecliptic. Juvenile Ganubi is the Arabic for Southern Claw. The names of these stars date back to the time when the stars were currently in Libra were part of the constellation of Scorpius. Juvenile Ganubi is a double star and is very easy to split or separate. It can be easily split in a common 6x30 finder scope or in binoculars, probably. Despite this wide separation, the two stars share the same proper motion and are believed to be a true actual physical pair. Juvenile Shamali is also known as Beta Libra. It shines at a magnitude 2.59. The name means northern claw. Using an 8-inch telescope at low magnification, Juvenile Shamali is nicely framed by a triangle of fainter stars, all of which are about similar in brightness. The star itself looks white. Slide master, slide number 18. NGC, which stands for New General Catalog, 5897 is a globular cluster that's also known as the ghost globular cluster because of its faintness. In his book, The Night Sky Observer's Guide, George Keppel and Glenn Sander note that in an 8-inch or 10-inch telescope, this globular cluster has a diffuse low-surface brightness halo with poorly concentrated center. A few dozen stars may be glimpsed with averted vision. With a 16 to 18-inch telescope, they note that the cluster resolves well. This globular cluster is very faint. It needs more aperture than an 8-inch SET, Smith-Cassegrain telescope. In an 8-inch telescope, you can barely start to resolve some of the brighter star cluster members. Averted vision helps. You know, averted vision is when you're not looking directly at the object, you're off to the side, because the center of your eye is not as sensitive to faint objects. Otherwise, this object is faint and fuzzy glow. Slide master, slide number 19. PK342 plus 27.1 is a planetary nebula. It's as a nebula itself, initially at low power, it looks like a fainter member of a double star. Increasing magnification shows that it's an extended object, albeit a very small one. At 126 power and an 8-inch telescope, the outer edges of the nebula appear somewhat fuzzy. There is eventually a bit more to see of larger instruments. Kuppel and Sander write that in a 16 to 8-inch telescope at 300 magnification, the 7 arc-second diameter disk of the nebula is visible, surrounded by a star-like center. Slide master, slide number 20. NGC, which stands for New General Catalog, 5878, is a spiral galaxy at magnitude 12.5. That's not very bright. In an 8-inch telescope, this galaxy is right at the limit of visibility. Averted vision is a must. I talked about averted vision a minute ago. It appears to be an elongated faint glow, just barely visible. The long axis is aligned along a north-south line. Slide master, slide number 21. ARP-254, or also known as NGC 5917, is a challenge object. According to the book of the ARP Atlas, oh, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? ARP Atlas. Let's see, I can't do Atlas after ARP. Okay. Particular galaxies. NGC 5917 is a faint companion galaxy known as NGC-1-39-3, and at a tenuous bridge, presumably of stars, gas, and dust that connects them. If you're looking on the YouTube version, the video version of this, you'll see that faint connection between them. Close examination of photos taken by a large observatory telescope show the interiors of both galaxies appear to have the effect of each other. Since the system is totally isolated in intergalactic space, the bridge and the disturbed appearance of the disk suggests a galactic sideswipe. In other words, they interacted with each other. And an 8-inch nor even a 16-inch telescope can visually see the object. It's an object for astrophotographers to explore. This is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 22. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Libra the Scales. I've given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year from the Astronomical League. And slide master, slide number 23, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Libra the Scales. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research on words and deep sky objects that I borrow and steal for every Skynet. Also use at times the website constellation-guide.com for information. The next week we'll take a look at two different constellations, Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. And this is KF5JJ Chaz saying good night and 73. Back to our net control.
Thank you, Chaz. Thanks for doing the segments that you always do every week for, I think, 16 years. Who knew? Boy, time flies when you're flying in space, I guess. This is KE5ICX. Let me go ahead and get any final check-ins this evening. If you'd like to join us this evening or be part of the count, please come with your call sign, phonetically please, your name and where you're transmitting from. Final check-in. All right, check the electronic check-ins. Everybody's squared away there, and I think the Echolink is good. so we're okay there. I think we're going to skip the launch schedule for this evening. You can get information on all of the launches that take place. There's usually one every day by going to spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule, and you'll get the list that I see every week. It is updated daily. And then also the visible satellite passes. There are several good ones for the International Space Station this week, so check that out. You can go to heavens-above.com, get that information. Just plug in your longitude, latitude, or your nearest city, and you'll get that same information customized to your location. And with that, we're going to go ahead and close it down. Tonight we had, let me look, we had still looking here, hold on. Oh, nice and even, 20 check-ins this evening. I don't know what I was looking at there. Losing my mind, I guess. That's what happens when you get old. We had 20 hams that participated this evening, including myself. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. I hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night, because at 9 p.m., when we discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration, sky is never the limit. We're looking for net controls and presenters for this and all the normal ERC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at it, send an email to nets@w5fc.org. Don't be shy. You'd be surprised. We do answer that email, and we'd be more than happy to bring you aboard. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X and our audio-video streams. The archives and other useful Internet resources by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:29 local time. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. We'll be back in about 5 minutes for the Afterglow movie net. Tonight's movie is Labyrinth from 1988, I think it is. I'll have to look and see. But at any rate, that will be our movie coming up 1986. So come back.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net movie. This is KE5 ICX clear for now.
Hey, Tom, I got a question real quick. Do you use Echolink or All-Star, NAWWR?
Well, for transmitting, I use All-Star Link.
Can you use something different for receive then, or?
What?
I'm sorry, Tom. You said you transmitting, you use All-Star Link. You use something different for receive then, or?
Well, I use Echolink Web for the audio for the stream, for the YouTube stream. So I've got two different ways of doing it. But I do like All-Star Link much better for actually, you can do a fairly decent job with as NCS. It's very radio-like, and I'm using the same radio I used in Dallas to make that happen. So it works really well. So I kind of favor All-Star Link. I like that. The Echolink is nice because it will work on any platform, and it has a chat message thing, which is helpful too. So that's what I like, Romy.
Well, thank you, Tom. I didn't mean to hold you up there. I just I'll be spending some time in Ohio there quite regularly, and I said, well, Tom does that from Corpus, so I don't have any excuses. I just wanted to see what you used there, buddy. So go. I'm sorry to hold you up. NAWWR. Thank you, buddy.
No problem at all. Yeah, I heard that you were moving, so it's going to be cold up there. But if you decide you want to have a footprint still in Dallas, like I do here in Corpus, All-Star Link is the way to go. It really helps a lot. You use your existing radios, and it's a Raspberry Pi jazzed up with the appropriate radio transceiver on board. It works well. You can build it or you can buy it, either way. All right, yeah, I'm going to take a quick break and then I'm back for the other net. So I'll see you later. Have a good evening. This is KE5ICX.
Please, Tom, please. And we'll still be here for another 5 years because she technically still works here. So appreciate you. And AWW. Fought back and forth quite regularly. And
All right, well, it's me again, and it's time for the Afterglow movie net. This one is one I regularly do. I had to trade off with Virginia this week. She's up in Washington State at a 40th anniversary of Short Circuit movie, and she's getting a lot of airplay there because of her artistic abilities and her devotion to that particular movie. And if you haven't seen her artwork, you should take a look sometime. It's very, very, very good and appreciated by the populace. At any rate, tonight's movie is called Labyrinth. It's from 1986. It stars David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. Teenager Sarah, and David Bowie plays Gareth. This is a 1986 musical fantasy film. It is a musical directed by Jim Henson, yes, from the Henson Muppets. Screenplay, or Muppets, I guess, Terry Jones, based on a story conceived by Henson and Dennis Lee. Co-production between Henson Associates and Lucasfilm, with George Lucas serving as executive producer. It follows Sarah's journey through a maze to save her baby brother from the Goblin King. Started as a collaboration between Henson and Brian Frog, following their previous collaboration in Dark Crystal film from 1982. Jones, the Monty Python, wrote the first draft of the film's script in 1984, drawing from Frog's sketches for inspiration. The screenplay underwent several revisions by various people, although Jones received the film's sole screenwriting credit. Shot from September of 85. Location Upper Truman and Beavers Spawn, New York, as well as Elvis Tree Studios in the United Kingdom. Films and practical features were designed by Proud and created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop. The New York Times reported the Labyrinth had a budget of $25 million and it underperformed at the box office, grossing only 12.9. However, it was a success in the United Kingdom and overseas, grossing over $34 million worldwide. It was first met with mixed critical response upon its release, which contributed to a difficult period of Henson's career, according to his son. The last feature film that Henson directed, and over the years it has been reevaluated by critics. Success on home video and television broadcast, Labyrinth has gained a large cult following. The film has been adapted in a variety of media, including books, video games, board games, and comics. Tokyo Pop published a 4-volume comic sequel called Return to the Labyrinth between 2006 and 2010. And a prequel called Labyrinth Coronation between 2018 and 19. In January of 2016, it was announced that the sequel was in development, but nothing has been heard since. I'll read you the first paragraph of the plot so you can get a gist of the movie. While in a park with her dog, Merlin, 16-year-old Sarah Williams recites from the book The Labyrinth, but is unable to remember the last line. Realizing that she's late to babysit her infant half-brother Toby, she rushes home and is confronted by her stepmother, who goes out with Sarah's father for the night. Frustrated as Toby was given her treasured teddy bear, Lancelot, and annoyed by his constant crying, Sarah rashly wishes that Toby be taken away by the goblin from her book. Toby vanishes and the Goblin King, Gareth, appears, offering Sarah her dreams in exchange for the baby. She refuses, instantly regretting her wish. Gareth reluctantly gives Sarah 13 hours to solve his labyrinth and find Toby before he's turned into a goblin forever. And there you have it. I don't know, I could go through the rest of this, but it's very confusing to say the least. And with that, I will go ahead and take check-ins. Now, the purpose of this net, if you're listening for the first time, is quite simple. We watch this movie ahead of time. Usually we get a week in advance, and then we discussed the plot, followed by the characterization and acting, followed by special effects and anything else we want to talk about on the film. And it takes about 90 minutes usually to do so, unless it's a white net. I have a suspicion it could be a white net, but we will find out. So first round is simply taking check-ins. So you do not have to have seen the movie in order to participate. In fact, we make you an active participant no matter what. We'll ask you questions about what you think about the movie and your thoughts about something that it may remind you of, or a film that you would like to maybe watch, whatever it is. So I'll go ahead and take your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting, and whether you saw the movie or not. So please come out.
This is November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony here in Dallas. I can't believe it, I'm still seeing strong 6-meter signals. I did see the movie.
This is Virginia in Fort Worth. I was in Oregon last week. I had to miss a Skynet this week due to a bagpipe thing. So I'm here, and I saw the movie in V5F.
This is AC5DL, Dave in Louisville, and yes, I did see the movie.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sir Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth, yes, I did see this movie.
All right, well, we've got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yep, she saw the movie. NV5F, Virginia, Fort Worth. Yes, she saw the movie and she's here. You know, I knew that. I've been having quite a time with things. I got lost today on my run. I had a 15-mile run and I got lost. And the street that I was on is Staples, which is almost impossible to get lost on. But I did. Next up was AC5DL, that's Dave in Louisville. Yes, he saw the movie. KD9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, he saw the movie. Any additional check-in? Please come now. Okay, we could have additional check-ins later on. We'll find out. So we'll start at the top with Tony. Tony is always number one because he's the guy that takes a deep breath and says, I'm going to be the first guy. I'm always the first guy, and he's got to step forward and make all the initial comments. Unless Bill's here, because if it's Bill, who is in, I don't know, where is he? Buffalo. I'm looking to see if he's online. No, he's gone. He will jump in there as first, so we'll see. Okay. Tony, NT5TM. Tony, you saw the film. What did you think about the plot for Muppet Mania from 85 ICS?
Good evening, Tom. You do sometimes seem to be a little bit troubled by a roaring noise or a wind-blowing noise on your signal. I'm wondering if you're perhaps tired from your run and sitting in front of a big, large fan. It sounds just like that. As far as the plot, I really wish someone else had gone first. I have positive things to say, but I don't think I have anything deep or thoughtful to add. The plot was certainly something that I could follow. It was enjoyable. It kept me watching. All those good routine comments go here. It did not have any, surprising twist or original thing it depended on. An annoyed person says, oh, get rid of this thing that annoys me. And then, as the song says, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. You have to go get that thing back. Along the way, the protagonist makes new friends and discovers that, the point of the journey actually kind of is to arrive in this case, because she does have to get the little infant back, but is the friends we made along the way. This plot was not in any tiny way original at all. Just, no, I don't detect any originality to it. But nevertheless, even though I knew it was going to happen and how it would end, even the first time I saw it many years ago, I did keep watching. I did enjoy it. I did smile at the friends she made along the way. I would be glad to have them as my friends, too. So it was predictable. It was completely unoriginal, but it was good anyway. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to anyone. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony, and I apologize for the noise. This has been mentioned more than once, and I keep forgetting to try and figure it out. I do have a fan above me, but it's not loud, but I don't know. This is a new setup than what I've had before. This is a new location for the last 3 weeks, I guess. Maybe a little longer. It might be a month. But this setup is, I had to move from another... I had to move from a different room. There's a whole story about that, so I moved to the next room here. So it is a little different setup over the last couple of weeks. Okay, next up is Virginia, NV5F, Virginia, our Skylab from Washington State this past last week, and now back home. Sorry about that. I couldn't, this is what happens when you get old. Expect this. It's coming. NV5F, what did you think about this lot to our fine film?
Thank you, Tom, and no problem. I think you're exhausted. I think you need to take some days off from running. You're just wearing yourself out. And yeah, no problem on any of it. See, I can't even think what to say right now. The trip to Oregon was great, and I can understand thinking that that's why I wasn't on Skynet tonight, because I've been talking about that, and I just had a bagpipe thing, and so on to the plot of this movie. I'm kind of with Tony. It is barely a plot. It's more of a premise. It's, your standard quest thing. You have a character arc in that you have to realize how, selfish and self-centered you were. And there was a weird sort of thing between her and David Bowie in this that was odd because he's, so much older than her. And that was kind of weird. Anyway, it was a pretty standard thing. The meandering nature of it was common for these quest-type movies in the 80s. There would be a big quest, but it would be fairly simple. And then there would be the standard kind of deception on the part of someone who's supposed to be helping, and then that person gets won over to the side of the person they were originally supposed to be helping, and they decide to help them, which happened here. But, yeah, like Tony said, it had enough little, interesting set pieces, and not really, how is it going to end, but more just what quirky thing is going to happen, what gratuitous musical number or recycled Muppets are going to be in this. But how are they going to be used? And, puppetry's cool. The art direction was cool. Jim Henson was very popular leading up to this from the Muppet Show and other stuff he had done, Dark Crystal and other things. So, yeah, the plot was super cut and dried, and I hadn't seen this in ages. I saw it at the movies when I was a kid, and I've seen it probably maybe 2 or 3 other times on cable over the years when I was younger. And when I was in Mississippi, my sister put it on the streaming one evening just to have something on TV, but I didn't stay in the room to see it, or I would have seen it, right before this. Anyway, it's one of those things that, like, it's just kind of, like, good-natured and fun and fantasy-driven, and just kind of want to see what's going to happen next, or what funny, quirky thing is going to happen. The swamp of eternal stench, and when they were jumping across the rocks, that Ludo had called the rocks for them to jump across, and every time he stepped on one, it made a horrible farting sound. I laughed till I cried. I don't know why that kind of humor makes me laugh so hard. I was laughing so hard. So yeah, it kept me entertained. I hadn't seen it in long enough to where I couldn't remember, like, exactly what had happened or when. I just remembered specific moments and characters in it. I hadn't remembered really the plot, and there really isn't much of one. It's like I said, she's just got to, like, overcome her own selfishness and realize that, she loves her brother enough to, go rescue him and give him her favorite teddy bear and whatever other selfless things a teenage girl could possibly do. Anyway, it's a cute plot. It's simple. It does keep you watching because it has just enough just quirkiness to make you wonder what they're going to do next. Like I said, there was a couple of gratuitous, sort of Muppet movie-esque numbers and creatures that were very, very much like other things that had been in Dark Crystal and the Muppet movie and stuff. But that's, you go to see a Jim Henson puppet movie, that's what you want, is Jim Henson puppets. So I enjoyed it, but not a whole lot deep or even really meaningful or life-changing. Not a real big character arc, but pretty speedy stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that people would go to the movies for. We had a much more laid-back sensibility. We go see things like Annie or this or somebody. They were just going over movies on a stream I like on YouTube last night. They do it every Friday night, and this week they were doing movies from 1986, and they were listing all these movies, and I think Labyrinth was one of the movies they listed. They listed Short Circuit, and there was such a variety of movies, and there were so few blockbusters. There were just lots of good old regular movies. You could go have a great time. It wasn't a sequel. It wasn't a big megaverse. It was just a nice little movie like this, and I thought it was all right. Back to net, ND5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. And we'll probably have plenty of time if you want to talk about your Portland trip. By all means, we'd love to hear about it. I love the pictures, by the way. That was a lot of fun, and it looks like you had a great time. Next up is Dave. He's back, AC5DL. Dave, you saw the film. What did you think from KE5? I6.
Thank you, Tom. So did you enjoy this week's Afterglow movie, The Labyrinth? I know I did. After watching this, I wondered, where else can you find a movie that includes David Bowie, goblins, and a bunch of Fraggle Rock puppets who look like they showed up for their day job after working all night in a coal mine? There's a in this movie, a goblin king named Jared, played by David Bowie. Right up front, he steals Sarah's baby brother and her dreams and holds them for ransom. Did you wonder why Jared, the rock star goblin king, would want to steal a baby? I know I did. Babies that age are high maintenance. They need constant feeding and diaper changing, and they get scared of things real easily and cry. So why would he want to take a baby back to his castle that's full of scary creatures and toss him around in the air? And what about Sarah's dreams? Did you wonder where he stored them and how? I know I did. Did he make a copy of them and leave an error in Sarah's memory disk boot sector? Or did he wipe all of her dream memories clean? The plot in this movie involves Sarah trying to make her way through a labyrinth. Did you ever have one of those labyrinth games when you were a kid? I know I did. I used to hate it when that little silver ball fell through a hole, but I'll bet it wasn't nearly as bad as when Sarah fell through a trap door with lots of hands in it, or through another one that went to a bog of eternal stench. Sarah encounters a lot of challenges navigating the labyrinth, but she makes some friends along the way. She encounters a dwarf named Hoggle, a troll named Ludo, the Fire Gang, a bunch of other Muppets, puppets, and dwarf union actors. The Goblin King does his best to get Sarah to give up her baby brother and her dreams in exchange for becoming his queen. He drugs her with a peach and tries to woo her at a masquerade ball. Then a lady in a junkyard tries to trick her into staying with her. But Sarah escapes both of those things by throwing things at the wall. Then Sarah finds herself magically situated at the entrance to Goblin City with Hoggle, Ludo, and Sir Giddiness. They encounter a giant robotic guard that reminded me of a cross between something out of the Wild Wild West movie and a Power Ranger. After blowing up the guard, Sarah and her friends make it to MC Escher's relativity room, where Sarah goes in alone to confront Jared. Jared tries to convince Sarah to become his queen again, but she remembers the last line of her book, "You have no power over me," overcomes Jared's control and returns back home with Toby. Once back home, everything is back to normal before her parents return. Then Sarah discovers that all the Muppets from her room have collected in her bedroom for a raucous union actor party. Did you ever wonder why Sarah's parents didn't come in to find out what's going on? I know I did. This is AC5EL, back to net control.
Oh my, Andy Rooney again, not to be confused with Mickey Rooney, who's just as equally as annoying. Do you ever wonder why we listen to this and laugh? I know I do. Okay. Next time, Dave, you come up with these, I think I'm going to let you go ahead and do the introduction, because you've taken notes and written an entire script. Okay, excellent. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, you're up. What did you think about the plot from KE5ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, no, I can't come close to topping that last review. That was pretty awesome. You brought up a lot of great points, though. Things that I was wondering as well as I watched this. As far as as is mentioned, we had a lot of this style movie in the 80s and probably into the early 90s. So it was definitely just kind of a lot of copying what had already been done. Unfortunately for me, this was a poor copy of some of the other movies we had already seen. I like the puppets, and I've generally enjoyed the other puppet-style movies that were made in that time. But this one I found, well, quite honestly, kind of annoying. I'm actually very surprised how well this movie was liked tonight. I couldn't wait for it to be over, to be quite honest. I very, very vaguely remember seeing this years ago. I remembered a couple of the scenes, and that was it. And after watching all of it, I remembered why. A lot of the reasons were the reasons that Dave brought up. This story actually had a lot of holes in it. We haven't had a lot of these fantasy-style films. It's hard to poke holes at a fantasy kind of thing, because obviously this thing was made up in her mind. We don't really know, was the world real, or was it just in her mind, or was it because in her mind the world was created, or was the world there first? But yeah, there's just some really strange things in this. For one, personally, I thought Sarah got very annoying as she went through this maze, just constantly complaining. It kind of got old after a while for me. I know, once again, this was written for children, but we've seen other movies written for children with way more level of intelligence than this one. We had our creepy bad guy, which was creepy, while he was eyeing this 15 or 16-year-old girl. I don't know, but and what's as Dave brought up, why does he want a baby? This all seems very strange. And it's just one of the more bizarre fantasy films made in the time. It really was just one excuse to go from one scene to another so they could bring in new puppets. Like I said, I do like the puppets, but that was about it. I thought the story was pretty poor, to be quite honest. Not a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, it was easy to follow, but it was just like, how could we make a cheap movie? To me, this film for me was almost worse than Jetstream. Almost, not quite, but it was pretty bad. And I know this is more third round stuff, but even the musicals weren't catchy or great. And this was kind of a focus of the movie, so I don't know. This is definitely not a soundtrack I would buy. Just very annoying characters in this one. Anyway, I don't got a lot more to say other than that. I think David did an excellent job covering the pitfalls of it. Back to net, KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. And I don't disagree. Okay. Does anyone else want to check in? Do we have any late check-ins at this point? Tonight's movie is called Labyrinth from 1988, I think it is. There's 86. This is 1986. 1986. Anyone else want to join us? Even if you haven't seen the movie, it's okay.
KI5, JCM, Kilo India 5, Juliet, Charlie Mike. Yes, I've seen the movie many times, including the premiere on network television.
Kilo 9, Alpha Hotel Oscar, Brian and Terrell. I have seen the movie, but it's been many moons ago. K9AHO.
Well, great. We got two more folks here. This is wonderful. And we've got KI5JCM. If you don't mind, could I have your name?
Oh, terribly sorry. Where are my manners? This is Thomas in Grapevine, KI5JCM.
All right, excellent. I'm going to acknowledge Brian, K9AHO. He also saw the movie. So, guys, you get an opportunity to say something about the film. Thomas, you seem to have a pretty good familiarity with the film. Tell us, what do you think about the film plot? And, oh, by the way, we go on and we talk about characterization and then any other sundry items that might be of interest, special effects, in this case, probably puppetry and music and all that stuff. So, go ahead, Thomas, what do you think?
I believe the star in this one is Jennifer Connelly. I just remember I first saw this movie right as puberty hit, and there was just something special about her in the movie. And I remember laughing hysterically with my friends once we noticed David Bowie's codpiece in the movie. Other than that, it was your typical, slightly darker Jim Henson romp, but it was kind of fun. KI5JCM, back to net control.
All right, thank you, Thomas. That was kind of my take on it. Next up, Brian, K9AHO. Brian, what did you think about the plot? You said it's been a while since you've seen it. I think you said that. But what's your take on it from KE5ICX?
Yeah, thank you. It has been many moons ago. In fact, I think one of the last times I saw it may have been in the 80s. No, it was actually in the 90s, right after college. I was watching it with my wife, who really enjoyed the movie. Yeah, what can I say? It was a Jim Henson special from the 80s. What's not to like? K9AHO.
Very good. All right, anyone else want to check in? Here's your opportunity. Please come now. Okay, hearing none. My comments on the movie, I don't have a lot to say about this film. This is not my usual kind of MO movie I have stopped and watched. In fact, for many years I've actually avoided this film. It didn't seem to really entice me. I got about about a third of the way through it, and then I had to go to bed because I get up early on Saturday mornings, and I didn't finish it off, unfortunately. But it's just not quite the type of thing that I like to watch. I have to say that what I did see, I thought the musical numbers were interesting. I thought a lot of the world building was clever. The cast, it was okay. I think I would need repeat viewings for it, but again, the plot was somewhat weak, and so I wasn't really compelled. Another one of those, what do they call them, adventure stories, whatever. There's a title, there's a name for them, where you go and you do the adventure. And it was okay, but I thought the baby was annoying too, that, wishing your child into the Goblin King was a bit bizarre. Now, with that being said, there was, interestingly, a variation of this, the same story, so I guess maybe it's a fairy tale of some sort. It could be, I don't know, I'm not familiar with it, that they did with a Doctor Who episode during its Disney years, which has been for the last couple of years. That has since closed out. In fact, I think they're out of production. They're no longer doing Doctor Who, but this one is probably last year or the year before last, and they did the Goblin King thing, and complete with musical numbers, and I thought that was quite good. I actually enjoyed that. That was fun. But it was only an hour long, so I could stand it. Same basic story, with music and all. So, with Disney flourishes, I guess. So, I don't know. It was okay. I'll give it another try, but I didn't get super excited about it. I've got some comments about music and that later on. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to characterization and acting, and there's plenty of characters in this thing. None of them are real, but most of them are not real, but that goes to say. But we'll start with Tony, AT5TM. Characterization, what do you think?
Well, first I have to point out that I have noticed a change in character on this net. For many moons, I was the Grinch. People would talk about how they liked the movie or could at least put up with it, and I would explain why I hated it. Absolutely. Sean, KB9SOK, may have taken that mantle from me. And that's okay, because I do admit that the plot was insipid. I just want to add one correction. This movie was absolutely not cheap. Practical effects and puppeteers always cost more. Having gotten that off my chest, yeah, I totally understand. I mean, the plot is shallow. And, hey, I'm going to point out that the characters are pretty shallow. Jareth is basically always bad. What do we call her? Sarah? Not Sarah Connor. Jennifer Connelly's character, Sarah, is pretty whiny and annoying, and she finally begins to get a little bit more depth and like, hey, I can do different things that are good or bad. Bluto is wonderful, Sir Didymus is hilarious, Ambrosius reminds me of the Lhasa Apso that I had at the time when we first saw this movie in my family. I think the only character who shows any depth, and yes, it's very predictable, is Hoggle or Hogwart or any of the other 97 different names that David Bowie calls him. I really did enjoy that, actually. He goes from, being completely craven to at least a little self-aware and maybe realizing that he is worthy of having friends. And I think we as viewers are meant to, identify with him. We're not the hero, we're not the villain, but we could learn to, contribute. I think that was definitely a message aimed at children who are, young and just finding themselves and discovering their character. And hey, maybe you can learn to do something positive in a small way, even if you do occasionally have to offer a poison peach to the heroine. So yes, as tempting as it is to be a Grinch, I really did enjoy the simple plot, and I really did enjoy the very simple characters. It's a fairy tale, and I had fun with it, and I think the only character who was really dynamic was Hogwart, or Hazel, or Higgle, or I guess Hoggle. And I guess our Jennifer Connelly was the runner-up in that department. So good, not great, fun, identifiable, nothing too fascinating here. NT5TM.
Well, Tony, I don't know if I can handle you being stepping off of your platform of the Grinch who stole our movies and handing it off to Sean. But you're right. The last couple of movies, he's kind of dissed. I heard that. We're going to have to see if he can explain himself. He must be taking grumpy pills or something, because Tony loved this movie. In a mediocre way, but he still loved this movie. Next up is Virginia, NG5F. Virginia, your thoughts on characterization? Tonight's movie, what is this thing called? Labyrinth from 1986.
Oh, wow. Well, Tony's last comments are going to be a tough act to follow. They were pretty good. I do agree that the workmanship and puppeteering and creating something from scratch did cost $25 million, and that was a lot of money back in 1986, especially when it made a domestic box office of, 12.5? I can compare it to Short Circuit, which came out the same summer, cost $15 million, and it earned like $40 million or successful for medium budget movie. Anyway, and I think I said in the comments when we were watching this last night that I remember going to see this at the movies, and the whole time I was watching it, I was wishing I was watching Short Circuit instead. So my distraction from this movie by thinking about a movie that I would rather be seeing might have colored my impression of it, because even as a kid I found it to be not very dynamic. It had few characters that were, kind of memorable. I do remember the little caterpillar guy. I remember Hoggle, Hogwart, Hognose, whatever his name was. He was he had the biggest, most interesting arc in the movie, even though Sarah was supposed to, and I think her arc was the standard, I'm the misunderstood stepdaughter, I'm jealous because my dad had a baby with another mother, and I've got to suffer that, and no one understands me, and she had the standard thing, along with very standard sort of petulant acting, that was not great, but she was very attractive and definitely looked the part, and was definitely good at being melodramatic. She was very, if that was what they wanted, that was what they got from her. But she softened at the end, and she did have an arc, and she realized she loved her brother, and she did do something brave, and And then I did like how at the end she, realized that friends were more important than having everything her way, and all these people that she met in this world, whether it was real or make believe or fantasy, those people were, those were aspects of herself, or just others that she needed. She needed real friends instead of trying to live in a fantasy world, even though her friends ended up being all from a fantasy world. And I actually teared up a little at the end of this, and I probably did when I was a kid too, because I thought the way that scene was acted and the way she had changed and was, planning on, kind of turning over a new leaf in regards to her brother and her stepmom. I thought that was really sweet. Apparently there were some, someone mentioned it last night, she had some clippings and things in her room that she was starting to take down or put away, and I think those might have been part of a plot that was cut out. They did that a lot in the 80s. They would have a subplot that they didn't feel like they had time for, that I think they probably should have made time for, because it would have fleshed out the character a little bit more and made it maybe more about her vanity or something. I need to look into that aspect, because I know that hardcore Labyrinth fans who are the way fans are, and they take a really simple movie like this and they imagine a lot of depth that isn't really there, and then they come up with this whole weird extended universe or whatever. I'm sure they've got some explanations for that that I haven't even looked into, because like I said, I haven't seen this movie in its entirety in probably, I don't know, probably 30 years. So, anyway, David Bowie was David Bowie. He was sort of weird and, definitely kind of, just sort of 80s, crazy hair, crazy makeup, masculine in sort of a weird 80s, gender way. I can't think of the best word for his, but that was so 80s. It was so, and I try to imagine like my grandparents watching this movie and thinking, what is with these people? It's like when I watch movies now and I'm like, what the heck? So if I look at this from that perspective, it's a very weird, very weird characters. Not terribly deep, just kind of, we're going to play to David Bowie's just general weirdness, the way he liked to do characters, like Ziggy Stardust and all that kind of stuff. He liked to kind of play to that kind of stage, persona sort of thing versus, being who he really was. So that was, and then interestingly enough, talking about actors, the baby in this movie was played by a baby named Toby. His name is Toby Froud. And he was actually a guest at the Short Circuit 40th / Astoria / 1986 movie celebration thing that I was at last weekend. And it was a Short Circuit thing, but the event planners decided rather smartly, I think, to bring in people who are peripheral to the, Short Circuit, and Labyrinth came out in the same summer. They also had the guy who played the kid in Flight of the Navigator was there. The guy who played the kid in Free Willy was there, and Free Willy was shot in Astoria, which is where the whole thing took place, because Short Circuit and the Goonies were made there. They had Robert Davi, who was one of the bad guys in the Goonies. He was there. And then they had a whole ton of people from Short Circuit. They had Ali Sheedy and Steve Guttenberg, which was like, that's like the gold ring. I mean, we did it. It was kind of a big deal that we got them on for this thing. There was Marvin McIntyre was there, and he played sort of the head assistant of the main security guy, which is played by G.W. Bailey. But Marvin was the younger guy who was sort of it was kind of a duo of the sort of fumbling Nova Robotics guys, and Marvin McIntyre was the tall, lanky one who was very, very funny. And he's still a very funny person, and he's very personable and kind, and very, very quirky, and has a weird sense of humor. I really liked him. And he was so jazzed to be there. So yeah, it was interesting that Toby Froud, the kid who played Toby the baby in this, was at the thing last weekend. And I think he did a great job. He actually did a pretty good job for being a baby that was like, probably looked like he was about 1.5, and he was doing things on cue, and he was being very cute and lovable and likable. And yes, I do wonder what David Bowie would want with the baby, but just sort of the odd combination of David Bowie, like, you know, trying to make this little baby his sort of new favorite goblin prodigy or whatever. It was a little odd, but it kind of worked for the whole weirdness of the whole thing. I thought the puppet characters were fun. Sir Didymus was he was just a Muppet. I mean, he was a full-on Muppet. And then his dog, Steed, I believe was probably partially played by the dog that played Sarah's dog in real life. In close-ups, he was a puppet, but when Sir Didymus was riding him around, it looked as if he was an actual English sheepdog with a puppet like strapped to his back. I thought that was interesting. So yeah, you had a lot of pretty straight-on characters here, very stereotyped, very Jim Henson, very Muppets. The little guys, the little crazy guys who could take their heads off and throw them around. That had a little bit of a hint of Dark Crystal to it. And a little hint of Muppets, too. I love Ludo. I think he's my favorite puppet character. He was just big and soft and goofy and very, very guileless and gentle, even though he was so huge. I remember loving him from the time I saw this when I was a kid. I think he was my favorite puppet. And, just straightforward, sort of stereotype fantasy characters, but pretty decent. I mean, people did the best they could with what they had here, and it was a vehicle for fantasy and puppetry and music, and it was not as good as the Dark Crystal. It was not as good as the Muppet movies, musicals and musical numbers and stuff. It was more of a David Bowie mashup. It was a high concept sort of thing that didn't quite land, I think, but it's got a cult following. People still remember it. And I can relate to that because Short Circuit's very niche, and this is even more niche, I think. And the lady who planned the Short Circuit event actually has planned and done several Labyrinth events in the UK. And as Tom, I think he said earlier, it's got a bigger following over there, and there's a lot of Jim Henson people over there. So anyway, it's interesting how this is all crossing over at one time. It's definitely an interesting 40th anniversary for a lot of movies, including Top Gun, this Short Circuit, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. 86 was a good summer for movies. Back to net, NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. Thanks for the synopses of what happened while you were away. Portland and all the activities and the people there. It was pretty cool. And not realizing that, 40th anniversary is a 40th anniversary of a lot of movies that were very popular and very memorable. That sometimes happens. There's a massive avalanche of good movies that all come out at the same time. Then there's this long, dry spell of nothingness that goes on after that. That happens, like for a decade or something. Go figure, right? Next up is Dave, AC5DL. Dave, you're up on characterization, although you've pretty much covered all the characters already. But tell us more from KE5 ICX.
Thank you, Tom, and also thank you to Virginia NV5F for that great summary of the 40th Short Circuit anniversary. That was really interesting to hear, Virginia. But anyhow, back to this movie. Did you enjoy the characters in the Labyrinth? I know I did. Take, for instance, the character Jarrett, played by David Bowie. I think he made a great evil guy, what with his evil-sounding British accent, edgy clothing and facial makeup, and high-contrast mullet. Did you at times wonder if a Muppet character was going to pop out of his head? I know I did. And I like how he said the word baby as baby. Then there's the dwarf named Hoggle. Sarah's introduction to him for the first time was kind of unique. I found out that Hoggle's body movements were played by a diminutive actress named Sherry Weiser, but she did not control Hoggle's face. Instead, his face was controlled by 4 puppeteers via remote control, with Brian Henson providing Hoggle's voice. Hoggle's animatronic head contained 18 separate motors controlling facial expressions including eyes, brows, cheeks, lips, jaw, and more. So knowing this, did you wonder how they got everything synchronized correctly in Hoggle to make him act correctly? I know I did. Maybe everyone had to go through the dance moves of the Macarena for calibration. Then there's Ludo. He was designed to be a mix of a Yeti and a troll, but with a warm personality. Speaking of warmth, that's probably what the person playing his character felt like inside, trying to navigate inside this 75-pound, 9-foot-tall animatronic suit. I read that 2 different actors had to take turns playing him to deal with the exhaustion. I'll bet the second actor had to take over after Ludo fell on his head as well. I guess my favorite character in the movie, though, was the junk lady. She reminded me of some ham radio people I've seen at swap meets, showing off lots of old boat anchors and other stuff and haggling over prices either indoors or in the tailgate areas. Did you ever wonder how she was able to materialize anything she thought Sarah wanted in an instant? I know I did. All in all, there must have been hundreds or maybe thousands of Muppets, puppets, actors, actresses, and others that worked in this movie. Did you ever wonder how many payroll people it would take to get them all paid? I know I did. This is AC5DL, back to net control.
Oh my, I don't think it's going to end this evening. Okay, well, you may want to check your medication dosage. I think there's something not quite right. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your comments on characterization from KE5 ITF.
Yeah, this is KB9. I'm sorry. KB9SOK. Hats off to the payroll people, yes. Oh, shoot. Anyway, at least the net makes me laugh. I always enjoyed the net. The net is awesome. Yes, sorry if I've offended you, Tony. When I was saying cheap, it wasn't about the Muppets. The Muppets yes, no, it's not cheap to do that part. The overall concept was cheap of the movie itself, not the Muppets. That was the only part I enjoyed of this movie was the Muppets. Oh, man. Anyway, yeah, the characters, yes, I agree with what people said. The only real character that had any real growth was obviously the one that apparently does not have just one name. Even though he tried to kill his best friend with an apple, he still had an arc. More just kind of strange writing in the fact that she instantly forgave him. Geez, that don't sound very realistic. So yes, I had a lot of problems with the writing in this film. The actors, I felt that there was a lot of it, other than the Muppets. I thought they did good. Jennifer Connelly did play the annoying girl very well. She has done some award-winning stuff, and I'm not sure this is one of them. David Boyd, I'm not sure if he's ever won an award for his acting. But even he, at times, when he was acting in this film, you could see him smile like even he couldn't believe he was doing this film. So, yeah, I kind of felt that, even though at times you could tell he was putting in an effort, other times he almost seemed to be in disbelief of what was going on. Typically he's in strange movies, and yes, he kind of just played himself. as he does in all these movies. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's, you know, if you like that, you like that. So yeah, I guess, yeah, my favorite characters were the Muppets. I do got to hand it to all the Muppeteers that take to do this kind of thing. But unfortunately, the actual actors we see on screen were just okay. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add on this one. And yes, I guess I have been maybe a little cranky in the last couple weeks, but I felt the movies kind of deserved it. But I'm clearly wrong on this one. Apparently, it was very much loved by many people. All the movies that Virginia mentioned that were made this year were way better than this movie. I enjoyed Sir Circuit. I enjoyed most of the movies she mentioned, but this wasn't one of them. So anyway, back to that, KP9, that's okay.
Oh, you think that somehow or another that you can get away with not being a grump by praising other movies from the same year. We'll see about that. Okay, next up is Thomas, KI5JCM. Thomas, you still there? Please tell us what you think about characterization from KE5 ICX. See, I always have to ask that question if they're still there because this group knows that they have to take at least one nap before this net so that they can stay awake. Others are not trained in this late night net stuff, so we have to ask up front if they're still there. So, Thomas, well, I'll try contacting you again in a little bit, but that's what happens. K9AHO, Brian, you still there? You got any comments on characterization from KE5 ICX?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I spent a little bit of time reviewing the characters since it had been a while since I've seen it. But what struck me is, you know, in the 80s, there were a lot of coming-of-age movies where the characters represent you know, just different aspects of growing up. And, you know, Sarah herself, you know, was kind of caught in that a period of growing up from, you know, being kind of caught between childhood and adulthood. First kind of frustrated by responsibility and self-centered. And then, you know, as the movie went on, she became more mature and self-reliant. So, in a way, the labyrinth is kind of like maybe an allegory for her fears, desires, emotional growth, and the different characters maybe are aspects of that. Like Jareth, the Goblin King David Bowie, he was kind of like maybe that rebel romantic interest, you know, where you know, he was kind of the bad boy almost. And there's some aspects about him that I didn't really like. For example, you know, he seemed to use manipulation and temptation a lot. So I kind of thought of him as maybe the narcissistic character a little bit, you know. But anyway, that you know, he was kind of maybe the kind of the bad guy character. And then Honkel, you know, that kind of represented maybe insecurity and self-doubt. You know, cowardly, distrustful at first, easily manipulated, and then ultimately, you know, became loyal. So it's kind of almost like an emotional story arc. You know, that character was, but yeah, it was. It just reminded me of a lot of those 80s coming-of-age allegories, and but yeah. I wanted to say to Virginia, thank you so much for telling us about your trip up to Oregon. I grew up in Gearhart, which is just south of Astoria, and went to high school in Astoria. And a lot of my friends were actually extras in some of those movies that you mentioned, Short Circuit, Free Willy, Goonies. Kindergarten Cop was actually just a few blocks from where I went to high school. Interesting, maybe ham radio adjacent fact, sitting outside on the porch of my ham radio shack is a 55-gallon barrel that's kind of mint green, and across the side it says Pacific Coast Fish Company. And when the filming for Free Willy was over, they got rid of a lot of the props, and I was able to buy one of those barrels for $20. And so I'm currently using it to store sections of flagpoles that I use for masts whenever I'm out doing field operations. But anyway, I just wanted to thank you so much for kind of taking me back to my stomping grounds and for kind of reminding me of all those stories. I hope you had fun up in Astoria, and I hope it was a little sunny for you, K98HO.
Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you for your stories. That's very interesting, and a little bit of background and some fun facts. Great. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to check in? I always ask that question, but it's getting late, so who knows who's still awake. Anyone else want to check in? We're talking about tonight's movie, Labyrinth from 1986. Okay, unlike everyone else, I don't really have a lot to add to characterization. There are a million Muppets, and they all have characters. And yes, I think you're the one character. What was his name? They had the list here just a second ago. I'm getting tired. I've been up since 2 again, so I start fading after a while. But at any rate, I thought that the human characters were kind of who knows. David Bowie played David Bowie with whatever that hair thing was he was doing, and somebody mentioned, I think it was in the wiki, that he looked like kabuki theater, that was what they were simulating with him. I can kind of see that. He has that kind of kabuki look to it, which is kind of strange, but it also falls in line with Muppets, so I guess it makes sense in the end. So it works. I thought she was okay, although it seemed a little wooden to me, her performance, but that could be me, I don't know. The Muppets had a lot of character. Every one of them had some sort of personality thing in typical Jim Henson way, but after, decades of doing Sesame Street and that, they got that down to a fine art, and of course they did Dark Crystal and all that as well. So they knew how to do movie versions of this. So I'm good with that. Let's see. Tony's sending me something. Another movie. New Dark. Okay. I'll look into it. A whole bunch of movies out there. Okay. Let's go ahead and do our final round. And we'll call it done for this evening. So, Tony, NT5TM, you're up. What would you like to say? We've got special effects, music, or something, or some other piece of it, puppetry, or any final comments. You've got the floor from KE5I6.
So actually, I'm going to just take this opportunity to comment on other things. The music was fun, but nowhere near as good as the music in the Goonies. Yay, Cyndi Lauper. If you want to see David Bowie be more serious, both The Man Who Fell to Earth and The Hunger. Ooh, The Hunger is very good. You've got at least 2 chances to see him actually really act. see, Aaron remembers us doing The Man Who Fell to Earth. We must have seen a serious David Bowie at least once. And that movie is Near Dark. Near Dark. We just started talking about, movies and characters and actors, and Aaron and I were talking about how much we wanted to watch Near Dark again. This is like a really good, serious vampire movie with a difficult, challenging soundtrack, but the characters and the plot are really good. So, but David Bowie was, of course, in The Hunger. Near Dark was just something we thought of tangentially. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. And I take your links seriously. If it's something that we can see for free and it's got a recommendation, then definitely put it on the list. So I'll look into it. Near Dark. Next up, Virginia, ND5F. Virginia, your final comments from KU556.
Wow, I have a whole wide swath of different comments. I'll start with, I'm surprised that Tony didn't mention the cool bird, the oracle puppet that had the bird on his head, that had the cool eye membranes that were realistic. That bird was kind of cool. He was very Jim Henson. He was very Muppet, but at the same time, he reminded me of some of the characters in Dark Crystal. But he was a cool bird. Let's see, and let's see. I think I saw. Oh, this is to Dave. I think I saw the trash troll lady at the Hamfest this morning when I went there. There was a lot of people with tables full of lovely ham radio junk, and I'm sure one of them looked exactly like her. Let's see. I think from here on out I will probably just wax nostalgic about Astoria. I have been there with this trip a total of 9 times, so I know it very well. I went for the first time in 1989. I wasn't there very long. My dad and stepmom and our family were all up there in Portland for a conference that they were going to, and he kind of did a double dip and try to make the whole thing into a vacation. And I asked him to take me to Astoria to see the filming locations of Short Circuit, and I can't tell the whole story about how we found the Short Circuit house because it's too long, but remind me to tell it. It's a pretty cool story. But yeah, I've been there. I was there several times in the 90s, and I went back in 2003 and hadn't been back until 2021, and until 2021 I didn't know if I would ever go back again. But I unexpectedly heard from the gentleman who had bought the Short Circuit house, and he tracked me down and was asking me questions about the house and the movie and all kinds of things, and he and I are friends, and I've now stayed at that Short Circuit house several times. It's an Airbnb, and it was for this trip it was occupied by the event planners. It was kind of the event planning HQ. There was also a party at the Short Circuit house on Saturday night for sort of high-end ticket holders, and I was very fortunate that a good friend of mine bought me one of the better tickets for the event, and we all got to go to the Short Circuit house, and there's so much stuff. There's a guy here in Fort Worth named Sean who has built a very good Johnny 5 replica, and he was also there. And then my friend Ryan from the UK was also in Astoria with his replica of Johnny 5, which has been shipped to my house in Fort Worth a few years ago when a company that was doing a trade show here in Dallas needed a Johnny 5. So this all kind of connects together in a very, very weirdly miraculous way. So there I was in Astoria with 2 friends, one from Fort Worth, one from the UK, who both had replicas of Johnny 5. I was there with my Short Circuit buddies that I've known for 26 years on the deck of the Short Circuit house with Robert Davi and Tim Blaney, who's the voice of Johnny 5, and the Free Willy guy and the Flight of the Navigator guy were there, and Marvin McIntyre and Chidi and Gutenberg weren't there because it was not in their contract to have to be that close to so many fans all at one time. And then following the short circuit house party, there was a sort of 80s prom dance kind of thing. And it was amazingly fun. The music was great. The lighting was great. They had both Johnny Fives there. There ended up being international Johnny Five cooperation. Sean and Ryan, I've known them both for about the same amount of time, and they've had a little rivalry going. And they were both there in Astoria, and I was wondering how that was going to go. And Sean worked his Johnny Five pretty hard at the prom, doing sort of all these crazy dance maneuvers. And right after the prom, his Johnny Five blew a track drive, and then he got an amazing video where Ryan's Johnny Five was actually towing his Johnny Five up into the sort of central event venue that night, like late at night after everything was over. And he has this amazing video. I reshared it on Facebook of Johnny Five replica Nottingham pulling Texas Johnny Five up into the Astoria Armory building where they had the event venue. It was something to behold, and I think those two have cut up and eaten whatever was between them, because I think them both being in the same place and helping each other out over the whole weekend was good for both of them, and I'm friends with both of them, and I need both of their help. So anyway, there was a lot of really neat things that happened. I briefly got to see Ali Sheedy and Steve Gutenberg. I just got in their lines and got their autograph. I got a brand new, unused short circuit poster, movie poster from 1986, and I got everybody to sign it, so I've got a pretty neat souvenir. And I got to see Tim Blaney, who's been my friend for several decades now, and I got to see Eric Allard. He's the guy who designed, and mostly, he ran the team that built Johnny Five, and I hadn't seen him in, God, probably 30 years, and it was really good to see him again. I met one of the other puppeteers for Johnny Five that I hadn't met before. The screenwriter was there, some of the producers were there, people from all those other movies I mentioned, and I got to do a poster for the event. And fun fact, originally it has 5 movies on it. It has it's mostly short circuit, and then it has the ship from Flight of the Navigator flying through the sky. It's got Free Willy jumping out in the water. It's got the ship from the Goonies out past the Astoria Bridge. It's got and then it's got the little ships from Flight of the Navigator. They're not Flight of the Navigator. Battery's not included, and they're standing on the port rail of the short circuit house. Has a real pretty sky, and all the colors are nice, and it came out really well. And originally, the event planner wanted me to put the crystal ball from Labyrinth in it, and so I drew this little stand sitting on the deck of the short circuit house with a really neat crystal ball that had the whole scene out in front of it, flipped up and upside down and all distorted in the ball. It looked really cool, and fortunately it was on its own layer in the artwork in Photoshop, because she eventually decided it didn't read very well. She said people wouldn't know what it was, so I had to take it out. But originally there was actually a Labyrinth reference in my poster art. But the poster I think went over well. I think it sold well, and people enjoyed it. And I also made a drawing for a big Dr. Pepper, short circuit Dr. Pepper banner that was in the main room there where people could do photo ops, and I got my picture made next to that. So too much to tell in one short time, but I figured I'd spend the rest of my time talking more about the trip. And cool to hear that we have an Astoria High School alum in our midst, because the high school was actually in Goonies for a little bit. And I've been to the high school. They have a midsummer festival, a Scandinavian festival, that when I was there in 1990, that was what was going on, and it was held at the Astoria High School. And so I got to hang out there once many years ago. So anyway, I'll be done, and I'll let the next person go back to net NV5F.
All right. right, thank you, Virginia, and thanks for the stories. You said there's more, but by all means, share them the next time we're together, or which would probably be next Saturday night. I'd love to hear more. Okay, next up, Dave or Andy Rooney, NAC5DL. Go ahead with whatever you wonder about from KE5 ICX.
Thank you, Tom. So did you like the special effects in The Labyrinth? I know I did. Considering this movie was made in 1986, it included a lot of cutting-edge stuff for the time. Take, for example, the CGI-created owl. Although we take CGI stuff for granted nowadays, the use of it in this movie in 1986 was pretty groundbreaking. And although computers were used for the owl, everything else was a creative mixture of puppetry, animatronics, and clever craftsmanship. One of the film's more creative effects was the helping hands in the oubliette scene. The filmmakers built a 40-foot vertical shaft and lined it with stretchy latex. Then Jennifer Connelly was lowered into it on a harness while 150-plus puppeteers reached through holes to form faces made of hands. Each face required 3 puppeteers controlling a different part of the face. After watching this movie, can you imagine Jennifer Connelly's reaction to this scene in the movie when she first read the script? I know I did. To create the Escher-inspired staircase room, the filmmaker didn't use CGI, but rather a full 3D set with no visual cues for up or down. And one of the movie's more memorable effects is the crystal ball manipulation performed by David Bowie near the beginning of the movie. In that scene, you could see him seemingly juggle this crystal ball back and forth, and it seemed like it was glued to both of his hands. But that was all actually done by a professional juggler, Michael Motion, who stood behind Bowie and reached his arms around him to do that scene. So, anyhow, there were many other examples of special effects throughout the movie, but it's late, so I'll pass it on to others for now. This is AC5DL, back to net control.
All right, thank you, Dave. Thank you, as always, for your interesting comments. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Your final words from KE5. ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Not a lot to add. Puppeteer stuff was great. The effects were good. Music was pretty bad. Other than that, not a whole lot there. Very much enjoyed the stories of the gathering that you got to go to last week, Virginia. That seemed pretty awesome. So that was pretty cool. Enjoyed that way more than I did this movie. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more stories along those lines. So as always, enjoyed the conversation. Looking forward to next week. KB9SOK.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for your weekly contributions. Next up, Brian, K9AHO. Your final comments from KE5 ICX.
Well, just a couple of things regarding the special effects. At the time that this movie came out, it was really before CGI had really kind of taken the place of a lot of the real special effects that the prop makers and so forth would have to create. And so there was something about it that was maybe the last of its generation that I really enjoyed. It reminded me a little bit of like the Croft brothers, Land of the Lost, and some of those other kind of Muppet-esque characters. Anyway, they built real costumes, and there was just kind of a quaintness about it that you don't really see anymore. But Yeah, in Virginia, I just wanted to correct the record. I did go to high school in Astoria, but it wasn't at Astoria High School. I actually was a student at Lewis and Clark Christian Academy, and at the time that I was, I think in 10th grade, 11th grade, kindergarten, Cop was being filmed just up the street from the old Bethany Lutheran Church, which our Christian school was located in at the time. So anyway, so glad that you have had a chance to go back to Oregon, and a couple of things that I would recommend. If you haven't eaten at the Bow Pickers Fish and Chips, highly recommend that. It's worth the wait. And then the Columbia River Maritime Museum has a lightship, Columbia, that is available for tour, and they have a functional radio room. So if you call ahead to W7BU at W7BUhams.club, that's actually an email address. And just let them know you're coming. You could probably arrange to operate the ham radio station right there on the lightship. But anyway, thanks again for sharing your stories, and I was kind of vicariously reliving the Clatsop County through your stories. Appreciate that. K9AHO.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for coming back and joining us tonight, and hope you come back next week as well. My final comments, again, not much to add because this wasn't my cup of tea for a movie. However, there was music by, who was it? I want to say Trevor Howard. It wasn't Trevor Howard. It was the other guy. Hold on. Once again, I'm getting tired. Oh, Trevor Jones. I'm sorry. He is composer. He's best known for some of the movies that we've actually seen. District 6 was one of them. Let's see, but I know him mostly from The Last of the Mohicans from, I think, 1989, I think it was, which is an excellent score. I've got that one here at home. I've listened to it a bazillion million times. I love it. But he did, I think, a very good job in this particular film as well. Maybe not as memorable, but he has a very heavy pedigree here. Richard III, Gulliver's Travels, Merlin, Cleopatra. These are some of the television productions he did. And he worked with Ridley Scott on G.I. Jane in 1997. So he's been around for a long time, done a lot of really great stuff. And this one, maybe not as memorable, but not bad at all. So with that, I think that's all I'm going to say, and I am fading fast. Next week's movie, and I will look into this, but I think this came up. I found a top 10 list from YouTube of some films, movies that you should have seen. That don't know about. And one of them is called Upstream Color from 2013. It's an abstract, emotionally intense science fiction film exploring identity, shared trauma, and free will through the lens of bizarre, interconnected biological loop. Now, this is directed by Shane Carruth, who you may remember did Primer, that mind-bending time travel movie. And if you were part of that discussion, your brain probably exploded while we talked about it. There have been actually videos that are longer than the movie itself explaining it. This one isn't quite so rigorous, but I understand it is a mind-bender as well, so expect you're going to have to pay attention. At least that's the proposed movie. I'll take a look at some of the other choices. Some people had actually brought out several other films. I finally got some contributions after a while, and I got a bunch this week, so I'm going to go through them, cipher them out, and see what we can put in upcoming weeks. So next week's movie, Upstream Color from 2013. I will send the notes out tomorrow morning with the link to the free movie. And with that, I'm going to say 7-3 and good. good night and good luck. This is KE5 ICX, now clear. Good night.
And if Brian is still around, I have toured the lightship Columbia a couple